Drake may seem like Canadian hip-hop's main export, but the country has a lot more to offer if you're willing to dig a little bit deeper. Like today's guest, who's truly one of Canada's biggest treasures.
Barbara Streisand.
Today's guest is a person that honestly, they say people like him need no introduction, but he honestly does because he's done so much shit that I would forget what he's done. I would leave something out. So he's the founder of Fool's Gold Records. He's an amazing producer and honestly one of the most important DJs of our generation. Ladies and gentlemen, A-Trak.
Thank you. Hey.
What's up, man?
What's up?
Thank you for coming through.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thinking about a 13-year-old, like, I think in my mind, the Wikipedia math was 15. Like
I won the DMCs
15.
at 15.
Okay.
I started scratching at 13, and 2 years later, I was world champion.
Still very young to be like, I'm gonna start a label. Like, what?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Well, okay, so it was just a very DIY era in general, right? And like the hip hop scene in Montreal,
You were building it, essentially.
we all like, you know, there's definitely a generation that was building it before us, but we just fell into it, embraced it. And, but it was so small that it was also sort of like overlapping on, like some of the clubs where there'd be hip hop shows were also kind of like punk and hardcore venues.
Yeah.
Which is a scene that has that DIY ethic too,
Yep.
where people kind of would make their own, you know, print their own cassettes or CDs and, you know, draw the cover art themselves. Like it's hip hop and punk in the 90s had that,
Hand
you
in
know?
hand.
So in that context, right, I won the DMC World DJ Battle really early on. It was the first battle I ever entered. So yeah, I won the Montreal battle that took me to the Canadian finals, where I thought for sure the Toronto DJs would win because they just had a stronger reputation.
Yeah.
I won that, and that took me to the world finals. Next thing you know, I'm world champion. So I'm starting to connect with people in New York and other DJs. At the same time, my brother and I were just, you know, kind of messing around making hip hop records where he was making rap beats and his friends from high school were rapping on them. And I was scratching on these records, and the group was called Obscure Disorder. And we ended up collaborating with Nonfiction and a couple other groups too. But when we had some records that we wanted to put out, by that point, you know, it's 97, it's that in the independent hip hop era, it's, you know, I'll always remember when Company Flow, Indelible MCs had, you know, their records that on the center label it said independent as fuck and loving it.
Yeah.
That was the ethos. You know, so we were buying everything that Rawkus was putting out. We were buying everything that Fat Beats was distributing. It was such a DIY period that it wasn't even that far-fetched or crazy, even though we were, at that point I was 15, Dave was 19. The records that we were supporting and buying and trying to emulate were all from independent labels.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
It made it feel even more possible.
yeah, it was just sort of like, all right, let's figure out what the pressing plant is, and we'll press some vinyl, and then we'll see who can distribute it. And actually, Rock Raider, rest in peace, connected me with Rich King at Fat Beats, and Fat Beats gave us a distribution deal.
It was so fascinating to find out that you had that label at such an early age. Have you ever thought about bringing it back, or is it just like...
Part of the context for starting Fool's Gold 10 years later was shutting down Audio Research.
Okay.
So Audio Research was very much in that backpacker indie hip hop era, you know.
that was my bag.
Yeah.
That backpack indie hip hop shit.
For sure, you know. Trying to emulate whatever Spinna was producing in those years, and Sean J. Period and High Tech and all of that. That indie hip hop time period is when it's kind of like the environment that I started my career in.
OD, Eclipse, Kenny,